There is a belief that certain devices like this mix cube here or ns10s can help you check your mix for translation issues. Essentially, the idea is that they can help you identify and avoid problems so your mix sounds better across different playback devices. So let's dig into this. First, I'll tell you the story about how ns10s found their place in a studio. I totally came up with it myself, so there won't be any bit of truth. That's disclaimer. Yamaha released ns10s in 1978. So the studio they were first used in was built like in 60s or even earlier. Back then, there was no modeling software, no digital software, no measurement mics, almost nothing that could help you objectively evaluate the room acoustics. So often, the room's characteristics depended on an ear and the taste of the person who designed it. If you picture yourself a studio from that time, first thing that would come into your head are these massive main monitors that set up 5 to 7 meters from listening position. This kind of setup created a dangerous ratio between a dry and a room sound. So that guy who first brought his ns10s into the studio, he got them in the hi-fi shop because they were marketed as hi-fi speakers back then. So he put them on a meter bridge and he gets amazed by how they sounded. Because compared to the mains, they provided dry, localized, and actually detailed sound. This meant that whereas previously the portability of a song was more like a lucky accident, now the ability of a song to translate well on the consumer devices became much more predictable. Although the ns10s were primarily used to work with live or rock music that was popular back in the day. And as I said in my previous EQ video, if you want something that's recorded on a microphone to sound like a record, you should boost lows, boost tops, create kind of smiley curve or a hi-fi curve. And what's funny about ns10s that they do complete opposite. They don't have lows, they don't have highs, and they have a huge nose at a 1500. So it makes them natural to just control the mid-range, put in the mix. That's my opinion on how you work with them. Fun fact. I once visited a studio where a guy had ns10s with a mid-woofer extender, so essentially the driver that was handling the lower frequencies was positioned slightly forward than in the original. So that reduced delay and aligned the phase between both drivers, and these ns10s produced kinda flat response and they didn't sound that bad actually. But enough awesome fucking backstories. ns10s, mix cubes, are relics, echoes from the past. And I kinda get why is that, because the world lives by myths of a 20th century. Genres, artists, music videos, internet, clips, brands, franchises, all of that came into life in 20th century. In 21st century, we got social media and AI networks, which are just tools for researching and spreading those myths. For nearly a quarter of a century, the world has been catching up to Aphex Twin, Daft Punk and Radiohead. Marvel and DC's are the stories that are nearing their 100th anniversary, and the audio world is no exception. Honestly, for the price of ns10s, you could get yourself a decent pair of monitors that, while not extraordinary, but will provide you with enough good quality analytical information. If anything was good in the past, it wasn't the speakers. And from my point of view, there is no objective reason to get yourself ns10s in 2024, unless you have 10 years to get used to them. Unless maybe you just want them, and then who am I to talk you out, right? Okay, let's move from lyrical part to something actually practical and useful. If you work with sound or make music, you're most likely to have these. The speakers, or more specifically, the monitors. The purpose of monitors is in their name. So they give you some sort of picture, like a display, so you can look at it. Their job is to take the sound to your ears with minimum distortion or inaccuracy, so the picture you get is as true as possible. On the other hand, Sheet control is more general term that refers to certain types of devices. These are basically the opposite of the monitors. They act like a prism or like a warped mirror, allowing you to look at the sound from different angle or different perspective. Or simply put, they sound bad. For example, I have Avantone. Is it sheet control? Yeah, I'd even call it a sheet control premium, when ns10 would be a sheet control deluxe. We can also throw in Bluetooth speakers, AirPods, and what do all these have in common? They act like a sort of bandpass filter, so you don't get any low end, you don't have tops, and they may contain some mistakes in mid-range reproduction, which essentially can become a feature like it happened with ns10s. So, in principle, any consumer device can act like a sheet control or a secondary monitoring, and you don't have to get anything special to fit into that role. Most importantly is you probably already have something like this. Since we make music for a listener, it just makes sense to listen to the music like they will. And seems obvious, right? Thanks, Cap. Well, the key here is to listen. Any so-called sheet control helps you to develop your listening experience. And this is my main take from this video. So it doesn't matter if you're using Avantones or EarPods. What matters is actually listening and comparing the sound you get from them against your monitors. Now let me explain how to do it effectively. Let's say I'm mixing a song on my monitors. And I like how it sounds, so what I do is I switch to my Avantone and do a quick mix check, right? Wrong. Our ears are a bit smarter than we are, and they can adjust and adapt to the sound over time. Also, when you switch to your sheet control, after hours of listening on your monitors, you're fooling yourself. Because your ears have adapted to one sound, and then they will try to find it on another system. So if I was listening to anything on my monitors, and I'm switching to AirPods, even the brightest track would appear dull to me. Now, it's the time to talk about the right approach or how to use your secondary monitoring or sheet control properly. Let's call it an algorithm. Step 1. Use your main monitoring setup to dial into your sound, get to the point where you like it, just do what you usually do. Step 2. Take a little break, 5 minutes or so, if possible. Step 3. Switch to your sheet control device and just start listening to some music, like reference tracks, top charts, just the music you like. 5-10 minutes. After you're done, play your own mix. And the first thing that's gonna catch your eye or your ear, it will be it. I'm 99% sure of it. Once you've found something that hurts your mix translation, try not to fix it on your sheet control. What you should do instead is to address the problem on your main monitors. If you think about it like video game, this way you're gonna get the most XP out of it. Let me give you a couple of examples of what can happen. So if the bass on my monitors seems to be fine, but on a small speaker it's gone, then the problem might be in the low mids, because the bass is lacking those frequencies this smaller speaker can reproduce. Or it can be just the opposite. The bass might crap up the entire low mids region and the other instruments would appear to be small. Or if on the monitors the vocal sounds balanced, but when I switch to my sheet control and it appears to be not there, the problem might be in higher mids or just the mids. So for example, the vocal gets masked by guitars too much, and on a small speaker that has no top end, it becomes obvious. In reality, those examples are useless and out of context because it can be anything really, but it's worth learning the balance in music across different devices. Talking about mix engineers, I can split them into just two groups. The ones who would bring their mixes outside the studio and check how they sound on multiple devices, and the ones that have just one monitoring line and it just seems to work for them. For me, it isn't a battle of opinions or techniques, it's an evolution. So if you have an excellent monitoring setup and a lot of experience, then you don't really need anything else. But if you're working from bedroom, using something like shit control may be incredibly helpful. So think of it as a part of your journey. So you develop your listening experience to one day afford really good monitoring setup. Speaking about more shit control examples, I don't really use Mixcube since like 2 years, but I like having it. I usually put my camera on it. What I use instead, if I feel like I need to, are these, the old wired earpods, because, well, they're cheap. I can get new ones with the change from breakfast, and I can listen to them anywhere, and they highlight the mid-bass region quite well. This is actually a tricky region, because there you will find the fundamentals of snare, vocals, guitars, some bass notes, and the second and third harmonics of both kick and bass go there as well, so everything. And these headphones, they're not headphones, but they are very picky about that region. So if something's even slightly off, the newer AirPods will kind of handle it, no problem. But these ones, particular these ones, we're gonna make a drama, like a complete tragedy out of it. Another day I was experimenting with headphones. So since 3 years I have them, I finally tried out the default balance pads instead of analytical ones. And I found out that they show something similar that I would expect from shit control. They do emphasize 150 Hz now. And the last incredible monitoring life hack. You can use a plugin called Sonobus to stream your mix from your PC to your phone. So you can just listen to it using headphones without rendering. The problem, I wouldn't suggest using your phone as shit control, because the sound you get out of it is different every time, because it depends on how you hold it. If you put it on a table, it's gonna sound different, so I wouldn't find phones really reliable in that way. Anyway, that's it. Try the shit control algorithm I've mentioned, learn your devices, don't buy ns10s, live with the future in mind, and make great music today. See you.